Welcome to part 2. In this part I will complete the PC hardware install. I again apologize for the delay. So now that I got it this way, I can start screwing it in. I'm going to start with one screw all the way on the other side here. Got to have the right screws for the motherboard. They come with the case. Magnetic screwdriver here. Get it down, get it in there. And you don't tighten these. You just get them sort of started. You can go down about halfway maybe, a little bit more, but don't tighten them down. That takes care of one. Now I got 8 more to go. Zoom ahead here. And now that all 9 screws are now in place, I will double check the I/O shield to make sure that I don't have any fingers stuck in the wrong place. So I'm looking down inside the connectors now to see that. They all look good, so I'm going to tighten down the screws. I like to tighten in an alternating fashion. I like to go from one corner to the other, then over, so that we get even torque. I'm not going too tight, so I do that one, I go to this one, back over here, and I come over here to this one, and then I go to this one. I am not making them too tight. Snug. You do not want to crack the motherboard. There's no need to do it. It's too much. Okay, the motherboard is in. What I will do in terms of cables on this end before I proceed, I'm going to connect the RGB connector up to one of the motherboard RGB connectors. This motherboard happens to have 2. I'm going to pick the one that's over here. Do make sure you have the little arrow here, lined up with what says 12 volts on the motherboard. The thing says 12 volts, then GRB, and I'm going to put it right into there. I'll do that so we can see it when I power the thing on. And also the cable will be somewhat out of the way as I rearrange things. Let me go to the back now. Now, although I learned from this case when I was evaluating it and then putting that other demonstration PC in it, that you should put any hard drives in first. The hard drive for this one, which I have ordered, a 2 terabyte one, has not arrived yet. So I will still able to get it up because I do have my 500 gig SSD. The reason I mention that is I really should put the hard drive in first, a 3.5-inch hard drive that is, before I put the power supply in. Otherwise I can't get to the screws for the hard drive. So I may have to pull this at least out partially later on once I put that hard drive in. But for now, let me get it in here. You have to sort of squeeze it in and make sure it's oriented right. The fan has to go down because that's where the filter is, right? It's going to suck air through there. This is an ingoing fan. The out is here on the back of the power supply. So I have to make sure I get it in this way. Okay, I'll deal with this in a couple of minutes. In terms of the screws, the power supply comes with 4 screws in this case and a bunch of tie wraps. Tie wraps will come in handy. I won't let those go to waste. Let me get the screws out. And I mentioned this multiple times in previous videos, but I'll repeat it again. If your power supply comes with screws, use those screws because that ensures that you're using ones that are the right length so that you don't short anything out in your power supply. There is active high voltage components in there. Well, 120 volts in the US. You don't want to have a screw hitting that while you're trying to screw it in, believe me. So we take these 4 screws, and these are the ones that I will now use to screw the power supply in. So I get it up into position here, and I can get these 4 screws in. Also, make sure that the power supply switch is in the 0 or off position. You don't want that coming on or you don't expect it to. Just get it started. I'll tighten them in a minute, get all 4 of them in there. The alternating of the screws is not as critical here because this is really large metal. It's nothing that is delicate there. It's not like a PCB board that bending it the wrong way will cause a problem. Usually you see only 4 of the screw holes visible. Pick those 4 to put the screws in. And now the power supply is in. And now we have a whole bunch of cables to deal with here. Since I didn't get a modular one, we're going to have to tuck the unused cables down into that hole. We'll find out later which ones they are, but let me get the ones that I know I need right now. GPUs, video card ones, and regular SATA ones, and it's even got some Molex connectors. It's got the CPU power connector. I got to get that one in. That's going to be a trick. I have to come all the way up to the top here, get it through this hole over here. And then I have to get it onto the motherboard once I get it over there. And the same thing holds true for the main 24-pin connector, which looks like it's right over here. Get it in right in here. And we'll start with those two, then I'll come back around. Make sure you tuck the cables in before you lie anything on them. That's what I'm doing right now. I tuck them all into this little hole here so that they're not in the way as I turn this thing over. And now I can try it. This one is easy. Make sure that the little latch is on the right side of this thing. So opposite end of the latch is on this side of the connector. So I got to turn this around like this. And I push this in. This is going to be a little bit stiff normally. You may have to give it a little bit of muscle until you hear a snap. Push it down in place. There we go. Wasn't that loud, but I heard it. This is the hard one up at the top here. It's actually trying to fall out already. So I got to get this one here onto that connector right there behind the fan and over near the regulator unit, the voltage regulator, VRM. Make sure I have the right orientation for the latch on that one too. It's on the top side, so I got to get it around like this and try to get it. This one has 8 pins and all 8 pins are used. I got to get it up in here. See it right there. And I got to push it down until it snaps. There we go. This particular CPU chip requires a graphics processing unit or video card. I'll put the video card in now. We'll get a monitor set up. I'd like you to see it's on the screen. The video card. That's surprising. It doesn't have a protector for the LANs on the card. I'm going to have to remove another one of these devices here. Jump ahead on that. Okay, I got it out. Didn't mangle it too much. It bent the middle one between the two. Always have to mangle these to get these out in this type of case. Video card's all ready to go. Lift up the RGB cable there. Get it up in there. Get it into the socket. Push straight down and clicked in place. So we now have the video card in. We put one of these lockdowns. Now I'm going to need the power for this. So there's another cable on the other side. Push it through. Coming out from the other side here. Through. And now this is going to need all 4 of them. So there's either a 6 or a 4. If it's 4, you got to put them together. These two snap together on you. Make sure you snap it in the right place. And that says PCIe, so that's the right connector for it. And the receiving end is there, so it's got to go this way. Okay, there we go. We now have power to the video card, 12 volt power. So it should work. So we got everything that we need to get this thing fired up. Let me get a power cable, get it over to here. As I said, make sure the power supply is off. So it's on a 0 position right now. I put the connector in here. Let me go get a monitor. Okay, I got the monitor in place here. Let me connect it to the video card. HDMI, there's only one of those connectors here. Plug it in. Make sure the monitor is on. One thing I'm going to do, because I don't want to get into shorting wires for the general public, get this thing powered on, I have to bring the power switch connector up to the front. This is the wire that does that. So I'm going to push it through and then connect it. So looking at the manual, power switch goes in this connector at the bottom of the motherboard here, and it has to be these 2 wires right here where you put the power switch. So it doesn't matter the orientation of it, anyway with there, and those 2 pins right there, right next to the no connection one. We now have the power switch connected. It may take a few moments in order to see the thing come live on the monitor. First time being booted, it goes through a whole series of tests. Let me get this up into here so you can see the screen as I hit the power switch. The power switch to top, cross our fingers, and hopefully it will come on. I see lights. Make sure the monitor is still on. No, it wasn't. Okay, let's see what we got here. I see a screen. It sees a DRAM size, 16 meg. It says press F2 on the keyboard. So we actually came up at this point. Let me see if I can get a keyboard on it. And power it off again. Put a keyboard on. Put it into one of the USB ports. Let's try it again. We went right into the BIOS. So we are looking good. You can do all sorts of stuff in here, right? System status. That's where we're at right now. System status. We can go advanced. We can see everything that's going on here. There are no fans other than the CPU fan running right now, so I don't want to let it run too long. At this point that I've seen this come up, I can go ahead and finish the installation of all the cables. So let me get set up for that. Okay, I'm on the other side now. I like to sort everything out to make sure that it's nice and well organized before I go ahead and start getting everything where it goes. Now you see these kind of tie wraps, the cloth ones. This is not permanent. I will, when I do the formal dressing of the cables, I will take this up. But for now, it can hold things down. I like to put the power cables on the bottom. That's high powered cables. Any low powered cables in terms of current I put on top. And I just stretch everything out and get it ready to go. These look like all RGB for the fans. This is the power for the fans. Let me go ahead and plug that in to an appropriate connector here. I need to find a SATA power connector. Here we go. Here's one right here. Plug this guy in. Make sure you got the little L appropriately adjusted. We get that in there. So now we have power for the RGB. So it should just come on. The fans and the RGB should come on for the fan. Do I need any of this other power right now? No, actually we get away with this because I'll be able to feed this through for the one SSD. So we'll use that one cable. All the rest of these I can push right back into here, and I will be formally tying them together later. But I do want to get all the front panel ones all bunched together here, and that's this bunch here of the very thin ones. I want to get them ready to go and push through the front. So I should have standard ones here, hard drive LED, reset switch. I pulled the power switch off because it's not routed properly. So here it is again. And then the two for the LED for the power switch. I'm going to feed those through to where the connectors are on the other side, and then I'll plug those in. And again, I will tie these together with tie wraps at some point. I just want to get organized right now. I'm also going to put through the cables for the USB front panel. This is the 3.0, and somewhere in here we have the audio, there we go, and we have the USB 2.0 cables. So I'll push this whole bunch through, push them through this connector for now. Sometimes you rearrange these several times before you're done, but this is a good start. The rest of these I can just tuck away here for now, and until I put a hard drive in, that's not going to be finalized. Switch it back over to the other side now. And then here on the other side, I have all of the cables that I pushed through sitting over here, and I will go ahead and put them into the appropriate connectors. I will speed ahead. This is all right out of the manual in the various pages where this stuff is described, how they go in, especially the front panel ones as I showed you a minute ago. This one here is probably the trickiest one, dealing with the power LED, power switch, HDD, LED, and the reset switch. The rest of them are pretty self-explanatory, the audio and the USB ones. So let me jump ahead to that. So it turned out there were holes that were better for routing those cables through, so I reran them appropriately. For example, the USB 3.0 definitely can, now this one has a notch in it, so this one's easy to put in, would go here. The USB 2.0 is right over here. There's actually two of them, but I only got one of them. This actually has four external USB 2.0s if you want, but this case only supports two. So I have the USB 2.0 here. Let me get it into the USB 2.0 connector. There are keyed, so it's a missing key there. It's pretty easy to do it correctly. Just make sure you get it where the missing key is. Don't force it, and you're in. And then the audio, I'll put these other ones last. The audio is all the way at the end over here. That's normal case. It actually says J Audio here, way down in the corner, so that connector there. So now the audio one is in. Now the hardest ones are these switches for the case. They all go in this little jumper block over here, this jumper block here, JFP1. Won't be able to see when I put my hands in it anyway, so let me jump ahead here. Okay, they're all connected now. All of the connectors here. USBs, the front panel switches, everything. Now I also had to do something that I forgot to do before. On top of the south bridge, there was a piece of plastic, so I had to take that off in order to make sure that it didn't overheat on me. I'm going to check to see if any of the other ones have that as well. I don't think they do. No, they look like they're clean. Okay, the next thing I have to do is install the SSD drive. I'm going to rush through that here real quick and bring the camera back on when we're ready. Okay, so here's the SSD. I got myself a SATA data cable. Got a couple of screws here ready to go, and I'm going to install this right over here. I want to be close to the SATA data connectors. There's two there, but there's four here. So I'm going to make sure I'm near those data connectors. It'll be right there. Go to the back of it. Got my magnetic screwdriver. Ready to go. I'm going to hold it from the other side. Put the screws in. Make sure that I have the SATA power pushed through. I had tucked it in here before, the one I was using. Don't have to use the same one, but might as well. So I'll just push this through where I can get to it from the front. I want the front one so it's easier to hide. So I'll push that one through. I'll push all the rest of the stuff back in here for now. So the SATA power, see the notch. You gotta look for that notch in the power cable. It is also off to the left, perfect. So all I have to do is take this and I should be able to just plug it right in there. Okay, the SATA power is in. Now the SATA data. See, where's the notch? It is there. Now the SATA data cable is on. Now I got to feed it back through from the back into the front to connect it up to the connector. So I should be able to pick any one of these to make sure that the Turn it on the right side. It's not. I have to flip it upside down. Okay, no big deal. Pick one of these and just plug it in. And we're in. And push the cables into the back for nice cable dressing. And now the solid state drive is in. So at this point, everything's connected. It should work fine. All the fans should come up. Let me try it one more time. Let me put everything back in and plug it in. The thing I'm missing right now is I haven't dressed the cables, which I will do later once we know that this thing works properly. Video cable. Okay, now for the moment of truth. All the cables are hooked up. Make sure I get the power on. Yep. Monitor. Is that on? It's on. Yep. Ready to hit the power switch. Let's see what we get. Oh, there we go. Something's happening. First off, if you notice here, the other fans are on. So I have these fans on too now. The RGB is working for that. And of course, the screen is now showing the BIOS. Okay, I think at this point I will go ahead and I won't bother showing that. And that's loading Windows 10. Because once I do that, then I can box this thing up. I'll probably do some cable management that I also won't show. The next part of this will be the heat test. So until then.